Hey everybody, how's it going? I just wanted to go over some of what happened in the last week on our watch dates because, as usual, they were bizarre yet significant synchronicities or patterns or whatever you want to call it. The first thing we were watching last week was this Big Hero 6 opening, and not surprisingly, they put up a giant white balloon man in Times Square in honor of that. And I'm sure you know, because we've been talking about this for 2 years now, that it's very disconcerting because I saw a vision in December 2012 of a New York City nuclear event, and there was a giant white balloon man in that vision. So that's why I made that short video yesterday, the warning video for New York residents. I made that specifically for non-subscribers, for people that just live in New York, and I tried to explain it in a concise way. And I felt I had to do that to just warn people because I mean, I don't know what will happen, but I've been watching these visions come true long enough now that I can't let it slide. And I just feel people need to be aware of that. So there it is, the giant white balloon man in New York City right now, just like I saw in the vision 2 years ago. And I looked at the plot of this movie, and get this, it takes place in San Francisco, but in the future, San Francisco will be called San Fransokyo, as in Tokyo, Japan mixed with San Francisco. And that reminded me of the recent closure of the San Francisco restaurant Empress of China. We were talking about this a few months ago because the name of the restaurant represents trade with China. It was the Empress of China was the first ship to sail from the US to China to establish trade in 1784. And the restaurant in San Francisco is supposed to close in December of this year, apparently. And December of this year is also when the Kim Jong movie is supposed to release, and we all know about the North Korean threat if that movie is released, apparently. So, okay, so have you noticed that these last few months, the events on our watch dates have to do with East Asia a lot? And Obama was in China for the APEC summit on the 11th, which was another small watch. So it just seems like something's going on with the Asia thing. And the background of this Big Hero 6 movie is also East Asian. This is the wiki article on the background of the movie. It says, when the Japanese government needs a team of state-sanctioned superheroes, superhuman operatives are recruited into a top-secret consortium called Big Hero 6, basically. And then it talks about the Ever-Wraith. It's the astral embodiment of all those killed in the 1945 nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So there it is again, the Hiroshima reference. We were talking about that recently as well. We were talking about how Disney has been doing that a lot lately, like in the show Once Upon a Time. We've talked about that. The Hiroshima reference. So something's going on with that. And I think Big Hero 6, that's Disney, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, but anyway, it says Baymax, which is this character here, the white balloon man. It says here Baymax is capable of transforming into a dragon, or synth-forming into a dragon, or whatever. And then it says, so we know what the references to the dragon are, right? Okay. Then it says Sunfire, Japan's premier superhero, joins him. Okay. This ties into the sun references, which we'll talk about in a minute. So apparently it's based on this comic. The movie is based on this comic series that was first published in September 1998 that is called Sunfire. And it takes place in Japan, you know, like it says right here, above the streets of Tokyo. And Baymax, the character, the white balloon man character, is actually a robot in the comic right here. So it wasn't until Disney took over Marvel that this robot character right here, Baymax, became the big balloon man. But the name Sunfire, for some reason, this sun reference has been showing up in a lot of what we've been looking at for the past few months. For example, we saw it in the People's Climate March in New York City, the rising sun, which was also on the UN website. And the UN is headed by a South Korean right now in New York, headquartered in New York. And I didn't mention this at the time, but on our October watch date, when this Oprah interview aired of the woman whose family died in the Connecticut fire, right here, this was part of our watch. It started in 2011. Anyway, in that interview that aired on our watch date, look at what the cup says right down here. It says, I mean, if you can't see it, go check out the interview. It's still on the Oprah website, but it says Super Sun. And all the while they're talking about how this woman was basically held prisoner after her whole family died in the fire. And by what she said, it sounds like it could have been caused by directed energy weapons. So I don't know what's going on here, but we have the sun reference again in this interview, only it's Super Sun. And now this Big Hero 6 thing based on the Japanese comic Sunfire. And then someone else mentioned this Big Hero 6 title may have something to do with SEAL Team 6. I mean, I don't know, but there was a lot of scandal surrounding that crash. This is an article from the Washington Times. Families say SEAL Team 6 crash was an inside job. Well, SEAL Team 6 was the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, the U.S. Navy. And this ties in with March 31st, 1854, when the U.S. Navy first began trading with Japan. We were talking about this a few months ago in the video called Is Tire Japan? You can still find that in my video playlist. Well, that's also interesting because I don't know if you remember, but I was shown the date March 31st in a 2011 vision. So now I'm wondering if it has something to do with this, because it seems like a lot of what is in the visions ties back to the history of the U.S. and East Asia relations in some cases. I'm not sure. I really am not shown dates very often. In fact, off the top of my head, I can only remember 3 times I was shown dates. March 31st was one, but I wasn't shown the year, just the date. And then on another occasion, I was shown a day calendar like this with the number 14, but no month. And on a different occasion, I was shown a period of several days starting on what seemed like Tuesday the 18th, but no year, no month. I think that could have had something to do with the summit that happened that week that I had the vision. And I think the last Tuesday that fell on the 18th was back in February when the U.S. sanctioned Russia. I remember that. And then there's another one coming up next week. But, I mean, the dreams can refer to almost anything. I mean, until you start putting the pieces together and you learn what to recognize. But you might remember so I guess what I'm saying about that is it's just, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's this month or anything, but it's definitely a watch. But you might remember in 2011, the pattern of events on the calendar that made the shape of an object that I saw in the East Asia vision that seemed to point to December 14th. It was in this video right here. And in the following year, you can see I uploaded this November 14th, 2011. And like I said, it was this bizarre pattern. I don't even know why I noticed it. It's so strange that I even noticed it. But the pattern of events on the calendar that were going on that year, and I don't even, some of this stuff, I didn't even get the date right. So I apologize for that. I think I got Kennedy assassination date like one day off or something. But anyway, the point is, for some reason, I saw this pattern in November 2011 that pointed to December 14th. Well, the following year, on December 14th, 2012, was the Sandy Hook shooting. And I mean, and the whole thing was, the whole reason I even noticed that was based on the East Asia vision that I saw right before that. This is the whole reason I even thought it was pointing to December 14th. It's very bizarre. But again, like I said, it was the next year. It was a year later, the Sandy Hook shooting occurred on December 14th, which was the same year that Hurricane Sandy hit New York City on our exact watch date. That I was shown in the vision way back here, also in 2011. And the gun that was used in the Sandy Hook shooting was the same gun that was used in this New York Christmas fire on Christmas Eve that same year. Again, on our watch date, our next watch date. So, like I said, sometimes it takes years for these things to make sense. They may seem like nothing at first, but then after a couple of years, then it all makes sense. And also sometimes the dates, times, and or numbers, sometimes they do not refer to future dates or times. We know that because remember this vision of the 2 and 4 in January 2013, the 2 and the 4, and then 2:20 a.m. and 11:38. Well, it turns out, originally I thought maybe it refers to a future time, but it actually turns out that that referred to a past event, the Titanic timeline, which may tie into the biblical comet impact prediction. I mean, I talked about this in a video recently. It may have been giving us the location of the coming comet impact. You know, the iceberg represents the comet, and the unsinkable ship, well, the iceberg in the Atlantic may refer to the comet because the Bible indicates it's going to hit the Atlantic Ocean, and the unsinkable ship may refer to a country that is unsinkable. It may refer to the impact location, which may refer to America. I mean, I don't know. It might make sense later, but the point is, we don't really know what these numbers mean. But what I noticed about this character that is set up there in Times Square right now is that it's a big, fat, white hero filled with nothing but hot air. And I don't know about you, but I have heard other countries talk about Americans that way. So it almost seems like it could be, I'm not saying it is, it almost seems like it could be thought of by maybe some people like it's a jab at Americans standing right there in New York City. I don't know, but that wouldn't be the first time. You remember this Canadian article that was posted on the day Obama was elected into office, if I'm not mistaken, talking about a new monument in downtown Toronto that depicts an American soldier laying flat on the ground with no weapon. And here we have a strong Japanese character right here on the right, and a big fat American character filled with hot air. And I mean, I don't know, but if it's meant to be a jab at us on our own soil, again, like I said, it wouldn't be the first time. Because the United Nations, which we know was originally founded by two men from France and the UK, is headquartered on our soil, and they are clearly against the U.S. Constitution, specifically the Second Amendment, as you can see by this sculpture here. And again, they are sitting on our soil right now, and they're against our Constitution. I have to stop part 1. The link to part 2 is below.